Hi, I'm Pete Najarian on this beautiful Friday morning. This is the Take for Market Rebellion. Now, yesterday, we continue to talk about we've gone through the big portions of earnings season, but there's still some scattered, very large names out there. As a matter of fact, yesterday, the reaction of Nvidia's numbers, and they were absolutely extraordinary numbers. I mean, you want to talk about blowout numbers, that's exactly what we had. Now, stock has been absolutely flying to the upside into this number. And throughout the year, the stock has made an absolutely incredible move. So the reaction was a little bit of selling, a little bit of pressure on the stock. And actually, the stock was in about a $20 range yesterday before ending up very close to the flat line, quite honestly. So it's just the reaction. Each and every stock's going to have a different reaction. But obviously, when you look through those numbers, there was not much you could poke a hole in and say, you know what, this is an issue. And when you've got that kind of growth that they have right now in Nvidia, you look at that price to earnings number and it doesn't seem quite as high. And that's because of the fact that their growth is so unbelievably fast, strong, and building. And as a matter of fact, as data centers started to pass by gaming, that was really a lot of what everybody was focusing on yesterday. So in the pre-markets, we were looking actually pretty flat. Off a little bit. Dow actually at some point was off close to 100 points and got pushed down a little bit. That rallied back all the way and actually finished in positive territory, up about 46 points. NASDAQ, sort of a similar thing. Had some flat times. It did have a nice acceleration towards the end of the day. As a matter of fact, into the closed near the highs, up about 1%, 118 points for the NASDAQ. So we talk about the NASDAQ all the time and some of the names that absolutely are the leadership names. But you can take this time around and say, you know what, it looks like a lot of the pandemic stocks that if things are still a little bit on not such solid ground. So the names that were really working, PayPal, Zoom, Tesla, and a name that you don't hear very often, but Synopsys, which is another one of those great names that's been around forever. Netflix was participating, Activision, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, the usual contributors in terms of the NASDAQ. Just an extraordinary run to the upside. On the recovery side, when you look over at the Dow, it was some of those names that obviously on the tech side of things, Microsoft, Apple, and Intel. But it wasn't just those names. You had Pfizer, you had J&J, and we're seeing a little bit more from Pfizer and J&J as we hear more in terms of what's going on with the potential going forward in their fight against the coronavirus. So that's something I think you need to keep an eye on. Now, the financials yesterday, what a disappointment. The financials just have such a difficult time getting out of their own way. And once again, down about 1% yesterday. You look over at energy, which has also struggled throughout the year after that big rally off of a terrible level, call it negative, and has come back. But then it's been stuck now. Oil has been stuck for quite a while now, for what seems like weeks, somewhere close to this. It got over 40 and then it just hit the pause button between 41 and 42. And that's unfortunate because we're seeing some of the reaction on many of the energy names that's getting more and more negative, and you see a push to the downside of about 2% yesterday on energy. So that's something that did stand out as well. Silver and gold, they both moving around pretty nicely. Silver continues to want to hold up at these higher levels, it seems, and so it's trading somewhere in the 27s. You got gold that's been close to, call it 1950, did get up and over 20 and got to that 2020 level, but then it pulled back on a couple of pretty dramatic days, pulled back in both gold and silver. You had volatility index, which had a pretty nice range yesterday because the market sort of moved around enough to give it a range, but still closed back down 22 3/4 on a pretty nice volume day. We had about 27 million contracts trading yesterday. So nice participation. We talk about this, and I talk about this, I bring it up all the time. Participation during the summer, which is an unusual thing, especially as you get closer and closer to the weekend. Here we are at Friday. It's going to be very curious to see, are these numbers going to continue to hold up with everybody trading from home, everybody working from home, so it seems. And take a look at Zoom if you think I'm wrong on that. But all of what we've been talking about, are we going to see people still hanging around and trading for the entire trading day, or is maybe the noon hour going to start to slow down? We'll see. We're only about 45 minutes into the trading day right now. And matter of fact, the markets actually slipped back down a little bit. They were up about 70, 80, even maybe close to 100 points. Now up about 40 points on the Dow, about 24 points on the NASDAQ right now. So that's something that I think as we get into today and get a little bit deeper, the market's been fairly tight. We've been moving around a little bit, but mostly in positive territory. And it's been interesting because to start the day, we actually were looking at markets that could have been down maybe as much as 90, 100 points. And then as we got to the open and things flattened out, and then we started to accelerate to the upside. And on the back of, take a look at Apple again today, just an amazing run for Apple. And, when you look at Apple and Tesla and more combinations of names out there potentially in terms of, are there going to be more splits? My gut would tell me absolutely we will see more of those as time goes by. It doesn't mean it accelerates right now, but I do think we're going to see a few of the other names as they've absolutely rocketed to the upside that might slip as well. But the leadership role right now, Apple, you got Nike, Visa, Caterpillar, Walmart. You got a little bit of the financials. I mentioned Visa, but how about JP Morgan actually showing a little bit of strength today? It's still trading around 98. Let's be honest. The stock has been in a very interestingly tight range and just can't seem to break out and sustain above that $100 level. So until that happens, it looks like JP Morgan's going to be stuck in this fairly tight range for a while. Do have a little weakness in some of the financials, though. Goldman Sachs was down early along with Cisco. NASDAQ, on the other hand, only up about 14, 15 points, but it's interesting to see the names that are really starting to work today in terms of the NASDAQ. So you've got a lot in the gaming space. Look at Wynn, Las Vegas Sands, MGM, those names. Tesla, which I seem like it comes up every single day as that stock has rocketed over 2,000 a share. Apple, nice strong day. AMD, Zoom, eBay. You got the airlines today, which is interesting just to see how that movement goes back and forth with the positive days for the airlines and the negative days for the airlines. And we were hearing a lot of talk about when will they return to any kind of the 2019 normal kind of numbers. It sounded today to me as I was listening that it seems like they've pushed that out even further. I was hearing 2024 today before we might see that return to those numbers. So it does make a lot more sense in terms of some of these pandemic type names that we bring up all the time, Zoom being the easiest one of all for sure, and some of the success that people have had with that, and obviously the stock success for Zoom itself. Now, talk about earnings. We still are in earnings, and I say, it's gotten narrower in terms of some of the bigger names that are participating right now. But Deere, did you happen to see those numbers coming from Deere? Absolutely blowout numbers and forecast. And what do we have? Well, despite everybody saying there's only really 4 stocks that are powering this market, Deere just hit an all-time high. How about that? Got over $200 a share. So maybe there's a little bit more than just FANG hitting. By the way, Lulu hit another new high today, just to throw in another one for you. Unusual option activity today. And by the way, big blowout yesterday. It was a lot of fun. I don't mind, guys, and I appreciate so many people. But I will tell you, if you look at the e-commerce names, and I can put up a list of the e-commerce retail names, you'll understand where the argument was yesterday that it's not just the big box. If you had e-commerce and you were in position, you have done well. If you didn't, you have not done well. People keep saying, well, they're the haves and the have-nots, and they only allowed those with essentials. Yeah, a lot of that is true. There's no doubt about it. But there's also a lot of truth that people aren't admitting to, which is if you have a great e-commerce arm, you have done well. And obviously, we even had Foot Locker today that delivered some really great numbers. And they had sort of a cloudy outlook, but when you look at their numbers were strong, and that stock with a nice little move to the upside. Today, unusual option activity. We got Pinterest. Now, the buyers today in Pinterest, pretty interesting because this is a pretty sizable buyer. Stock is trading around 34. This is another stock, by the way, that's pushing very close to its highs. 34, I think the highs were 38. Got a buyer of 5,000 of the October, so they are buying a little bit of time. We've talked about all this short-term stuff. This is a little bit further out. This isn't a week out, going to August 28th. This isn't going to September 4th or regular September, actually going all the way to October. It's like going to a leap. 5,100 of the October 34 calls. So they're buying right on top of where the stock is now. And with the hope and confidence that this is a stock that's going to move not only over 34, but make a pretty substantial move, because by going out to October, you're buying a little bit of time, and that option is going to cost somewhere between $305 and $330 is the prices that were being paid of that 5,000 calls that were being bought. So I also have to point out, it was the third bullish call buying in Pinterest in 3 days. So that says a lot as well. So there's some bullish activity, and it certainly does ring true that when you see a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, it makes you feel a little bit more comfortable about some of these kinds of trades. So I'm really excited about looking at what else is hitting right now. We're only about 45, now we're 1 hour into the day. So it's going to be an exciting day. Markets are up about 60, NASDAQ up about 40, volatility index unchanged, trading right around 22.5 right now. Folks, have a great day of trading.